Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'm your host, Christine Courtney, and I'm joined today by somebody who I think you're really going to love, Joy Brown Kirst. And Joy is the founder and CEO of Modern Age Skin, a skincare brand focused on perimenopausal and menopausal skin. Before launching Modern Age Skin, Joy built a career in executive search and university external relations with leadership roles connected to Heidrick and Struggles and Rice University. She is also a Rice MBA and a trained skincare formulator. But what I love about Joy's story is not just about her starting a company, but it's really how she translated all those years of leadership experience in these different worlds into an entirely new industry and doing it with purpose, curiosity, and a really clear point of view. So we're going to be talking about reinvention, what comes with it when you pivot, and how all those past experiences can become the training ground for what you will build next. Personally, also what I love about her, besides her flawless skin and that she's a no-nonsense leader. She's addicted to college football, and she can belt out a great 90s tune. So, Joy, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I guess this is what happens when you know somebody personally, right? They get on all the dirt.
They know all the dirt. See, all the other podcasts, you're not going to learn all that about Joy.
Right?
You know me though, if I had a few drinks, I'd make you actually sing for us. I will
Yeah.
not make you do that now. But if you ever get the chance to see Joy sing frontline a song, woo boy, it is pretty fun. Why don't you tell us first? Tell us because I love the idea of modern age skin. I have some of the products, which is very exciting. And tell me what made you start it? What made you get into this idea?
So it wasn't something that I intended to do to begin with. I was just having skin problems. And it went on for a really long time. It was suddenly I'm 16 years old again with like acne, but then also the lovely dry skin, and you're starting to get wrinkles and fine lines and spots and all that fun stuff that, you fully were not expecting to get it all again. So I was having some other health problems along with that too. Turns out all of this stuff was related to perimenopause, but nobody diagnosed me then. That was, 15 plus years ago. So I was 38 when I went into perimenopause, but nobody told me, by the way, until after I already went through it, that I finally found out that it was perimenopause. So I was just looking to solve my skin problems because I finally, I've had kind of cruddy skin as a teenager and all those hormone fluctuations then. And then I was in my 20s and it was great. Everything was wonderful. And then I get to my late 30s and I'm back to being 16 again. So I did just strip down my skincare and did a lot of DIYing it, doing a lot of research. I have a graduate degree in library science, so I am a research person. So I spent a lot of time online, like finding the right stuff to use. And when I moved to New York, because that was in all in Texas. And then when I moved to New York about 10 years ago, I was still fiddling around with it, but then I was getting more into it. And I went back and got a formulation certification because I didn't want to peel the top layer of my friend's skin off when they started asking me for samples. So I did it properly. And then I still had no intention of turning it into a line, but it was a white space in the industry. I did in my previous life work mostly with venture capital and private equity backed disruptive technology companies in the energy industry. So that was a space I knew those guys and how they worked, and did a little research and realized what a white space it was. I mean, it's a $600 billion industry all in that perimenopause market. And nobody was speaking to me about skincare. All it was is, the expensive stuff that was very thick and occlusive, which is not very helpful when you have acne, right? Once you start putting that thick stuff on your skin, it just makes it break out more. So I ultimately ended up launching the brand itself got the company all set up and got my trademark and launched the brand in 22 as an organization. And then in 23, we did a soft launch with the first product, the oil. And in February of 24, I did a hard launch. And in October of that year, I did the second launch of another product, my overnight serum. And we launched the last product late last year, the cleanser called the Reset. It was a long time to convince me that this seemed like a good idea to turn into a business.
Yeah.
It's a noisy market, right? How many times do you get like another Oh my God. How many things do you get? Like, here's a new
That's
this,
true.
here's a new that, right? It's like nonstop. And the barriers to entry in the United States are very minimal. So it's easy for people to just jump on in.
How do you cut through that noise?
You really have to pick your lane, right? I mean, like I tell everybody that these products are really good for hormonally fluctuating skin. So it's good for women who are pregnant. It's good for teenagers. My teenagers use it. You don't have to be female. My husband uses it, right? But
Love that.
the reason I created this product was for me going through perimenopause and menopause. And so that's who I'm speaking to. My story is what people want to hear. So I pick that lane and really, truly speak to those people in a way that other people or other brands are not talking to them yet.
And do people buy this from you? Are you just doing like online sales? Are you doing in stores? How are you doing it? Like, what's your
It's mostly direct to consumer, like on my website and some other drop shipping sites that I'm on online. I've done some pop-ups with another organization that I was with. I just joined another group called Posh Mom that's out of Connecticut, and they do live selling and they do some in-person events too. So I'll be doing some like in-person events and selling as well at those. But
cool.
for the most part, it's been direct to consumer since I started.
So when you talk, I love that idea, and our accents are going to come out now as we
Yeah.
talk because we're both from Texas, where you lived a long time there. So there's it's fun. It's interesting to me that you were in the oil and gas industry, and you notice I have to really say not say all
Not
oil and
all.
gas, and now you're making a oil for your face.
Uh-huh.
But how did you translate those skills that you were learning in that former part of your life and that work that you had done with VCs? Like, what were the
Yeah.
things that carried over? Because I'll tell you that I talk to a lot of young people who think, and you know this, you have young adults in your household that are going to college and stuff. But when I talk to young people who are working in their first job, sometimes they think that that's their path and that they're going to be on that path and that it's just like school. You just get better at that, get better and better and better and move up that same path. But more often than not, when you're our age, the more people you talk to, the more people's paths are very winding and not just a
Yeah.
straight ladder.
Yeah.
So how did it work for you? How did that road kind of
So this is technically my fourth career.
Okay.
I do have like I mentioned, I have a master's degree in library science. And so I started in the oil and gas industry in the industry. I worked for an oilfield services company for a while, and I did technical research. So I worked with all of our geologists, geophysicists, metallurgical and electrical engineers as we built downhole tools for measuring hydrocarbons in the ground. So we would work for Exxon to measure what was there, tell you where to drill, and then they would drill. So it was really interesting. So again, I'm finding stuff. Is like I jokingly say that my graduate degree is in finding stuff. It could be people, could be stuff, things, patents. That was a lot of what I did. So that's how I ended up in the industry when I moved to Houston. I got a job working at an oilfield services company as a special librarian doing technical research for those guys. So I transitioned I didn't want to stay in the oil and gas industry, not like that, because it's such a cycle that the guys that I've been working with who had been in the industry forever, it's not if I get laid off, but when I get laid off, it's like a 7-year cycle. I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I'm like 25 years old. This is crazy. So I transitioned into executive search, and Heidrick & Struggles was looking for a researcher. So that was, again, I was just finding people this time instead of finding data, right? So it wasn't really that big of a leap. And I am much more of an outgoing person anyway. So it was an easy transition for me from just finding things to actually being on the phone and developing candidates for the consultants that I worked for. So that really wasn't a huge leap either, right? But I think the biggest thing that I took away from I was in executive search for all told 23 years. So it's like it's like a psychology degree, right? You just start to be able to read people really well, like know what's coming out of their mouth is true or less than true. They're embellishing. It's really interesting how you can read a room once you do it so much, like over and over and over again. So that was interesting. So I wasn't so much, while I did everything in the oil and gas industry or alternative energy, I did a lot of that too. So anything in the energy stream, it wasn't so much focusing on that industry. of that being my deep knowledge. My deep knowledge is really people. So that's a skill you can take anywhere, really. I mean,
I love
moving
that.
from that into university and external relations, and I was the director of corporate development and alumni relations for the business school.
What made you go from executive search to that? That seems like a big leap too.
I didn't plan on it, right? I went back to business school. So I was already going to business school, and then Rice asked me to take that job, or they recruited me into that job. And I decided to give like executive search a break. It had already been like almost 20 years and I needed a minute. And so went back to school, and they asked me to do that job. And I found out quickly that I am not a higher ed or not profit person. I'm not well suited to that job, unfortunately. It was fun though. I enjoyed it. And that's another developing people and understanding the human psyche, because the difference between asking people for money and then dealing with the very emotional connection that alumni have to their alma mater can be touchy. It can be difficult.
Well, that's interesting.
It's interesting. I didn't expect that. I was like, it's a business school. Why
Yeah.
are you so emotional about this? But it's a different relationship that you have with the school than that you attended than just as from a business capacity. It's very different.
Right.
So that was fun. I mean, I had a good time and enjoyed being at the school. I did have really long days. So I was going to school and working there. So my office in the building,
Yeah.
I'd get there at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd leave at like 11 o'clock at night and then get up the next day and do it over again, because I'd meet with my team at night. But it was hard. But I did enjoy it. And that people skills translated over into what I'm doing now it's a lot of marketing and understanding the emotional connection that people have to their skin too, right? So the way I'm appealing to people is that this is a difficult time in your life, and here's how we can make that time better. It doesn't need to make you younger. That makes me mad when I see that. Anti-aging bullshit is what I call it. But speaking to them in a real way, right? And that emotional connection, it's not all that dissimilar to what I was doing before.
Yeah. Is it when you think about working with, like, there's one thing of working with the clients, but working with your kind of colleagues and stuff, is that relatively the same wherever you are? Or did you find it very, very different? I mean, it sounded like academia was one thing, like very different, or maybe it was the clients were different. But did you find that that there were a lot of things that translated in terms of like your kind of leadership skills or your kind of people skills that were different, not just for clients, but maybe for the colleagues that you were with?
Yeah, I mean, it helped me a little bit in translating. I mean, working in academia is so different, even if you're in administration and not, you're not part of faculty. It's just the culture and the way it runs is completely different than when you're in the corporate world. So it did take a decent amount of like adjustment time for me to kind of figure that out, of how the way that you handle the people around you in academia as opposed to just getting to the point when you're when you're in corporate. That's kind of what people want. It's like, give me the TLDR, like just tell me what I need to know and we'll move on. Where it's very different in academia. There's much more finessing. Not so much with
More
the
politics, I've heard.
yeah, kind of like territory, who's responsible for what, and people can get territorial about that, so you have to be careful.
I
But
think it's
clients in
interesting.
academia was different. That was like working because those were
Same.
corporate sponsors. I was just talking to the same corporate people I was talking to when I was in the energy industry, because Houston Energy, right? So just to get to do business development, get money from them to support students.
It's so interesting because when you think about your four careers, you really were talking about like kind of bigger companies that you were working in with, like in a corporate structure, I suppose. And then you had academic place that you were working, and now you're really like a startup. I mean,
Yeah.
when you say, which is like, so explain like what's that like for folks? Because there's a lot of people, I have to say, that I'll work with companies, and some of those people there are like, oh, that'd be so great to just have a startup. But there's a lot of things you don't expect in that process, you know?
Yeah. And you really have to think about the fact that you got to put your ego to the side and be willing to do anything, right? You are chief bottle washer and you're CEO and you're changing the printer ink and you're
Yeah.
tech support. You have to do everything. It's a lot. I mean, you really have to be willing to just roll up your sleeves and just get it done, right? And
Yeah.
not be too precious about like, oh no, I don't do that, right? You don't have the
I
same
heard
support.
I was at a talk last night with, you won't believe this, but Anthony Scaramucci. You remember? The
Really?
Mooch, yeah.
How was
And
that?
it was fast. He's a great storyteller and
Huh.
like really interesting. And he was saying when he left Goldman, because he came out of Harvard, went to Goldman, and then when he decided to leave Goldman and start his own thing, he goes, boy, when you start a business and when you start a startup, you get real familiar with the Pitney Bowes machine. And
Yep.
I just laughed because I'm like, only people like
Yep.
that would know that those old stamp machines, that he said at Goldman, everybody would do everything.
Yeah.
You had people to do stuff for you, but all of a sudden you're like, oh God, I'm doing everything. And
Yeah.
you have to be ready for that.
Yeah, you do. And I had the distinct advantage of the fact that my father is an entrepreneur. And so I worked with him when I was growing up. And then I got progressively smaller in my career. I mean, Western Atlas, which was the oilfield services company that I worked for, it was huge. It was the third largest global oilfield services company. Now it's part of Baker Hughes, so it's gone anyway, and they're even bigger. And then Heidrick is way small comparatively, right? I mean, we had like 1,500 people that worked in the company when I was there, and I joined in the mid 90s. And then I worked for two boutique firms. So I actually started an office in North America. I was the only American on the phone at one point. I was the only person in Houston or any office that we had in North America. So I learned that young, when I was younger, working as a high school kid, working for my dad in the summers, but also then I just kept getting smaller and smaller. I didn't have 20 people to do anything for me. So I was prepared for what I was walking into with this. I think getting that as a taste of it's owned by somebody else, but yeah, you're really kind of running the show in a space it really helps you. You learn not to rely on everybody else. You got to rely on yourself to do everything.
I feel like one of the things I do, I mentioned this in the beginning. One of the things I appreciate about you is that you are no nonsense. You kind of say what you think, in a way that I really appreciate. I find that you'll say, I like this, I don't like this, and you're okay. Were there any times like have you always been that way? Because it reads as confidence, but have you always been that way, or do you think that came about at a certain point?
I think I've always been that way to a certain extent. My dad's from Brooklyn.
Really?
Yes, my dad is from Flatbush, from like in the 30s. He was born in Flatbush, so he's pretty no nonsense like that too. I think it's a personality trait. I think I'm more comfortable with it now and probably a little less blunt about some things, right? I'll speak my mind, but I don't have to be quite as, aggressive about it. But yeah, I don't know. And I don't think I've ever lived I mean, it's kind of Texas though too, isn't it? Right? I mean, people in Texas are like that.
Yeah.
And then I worked with the Scots for such a long time. And when they came over and they were in Texas, they're like, we love this place. It makes me feel like I'm in Scotland. So they're like that too. So it just kept getting fed for me that this was an okay way to run.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think because, I still have a lot of women who are early in their career, especially when we say, what's the thing you want to work on in your leadership? And a lot of them will say either their confidence or their executive presence or speaking up in meetings or being, and it's really interesting my heart feels for them because I want to figure out how to help in those ways, but it is tricky. Some of that, for some of us, it comes easier and for others it's harder. And there are I mean, do you have any tricks up your sleeve for that, for those folks out there?
I think, women we don't do a good job of, tooting our own horn, so to speak, right? I think that approaching interactions with people who are above you in however way they're above you, it's just to think about it as, right, we all are human and everybody puts their pants on the same way, right? So even when I was talking to, working for Heidrick & Struggles was one of the biggest executive search firms in the world. And I was working all over the world. I did stuff over in Europe and Asia and South America and here, and talking to, I had CEOs of multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies as my clients. You can't be meek and sit in front of those guys and get their attention or get they're confident in that you're going to do a good job for them. So speaking as an associate, right, I was developing candidates. So I'm on the phone with people. That's a great way to practice that, right? Like you can be feeling like you're melting into a puddle in your office, but you're on the phone. They can't see any of that. So that's really helpful to to just practice, right?
That's
Just talking to
interesting. Yeah.
people and really thinking about it, thinking that this person was me at one point, right? They were young because I was younger than almost everybody that I was talking to on the phone. When you're talking to, higher level executives like that, most of them are 40s, 50s, 60s. And I started in the industry at 26. So it's totally different, right? That you feel that sort of power dynamic there, but they were you. They had to do the same thing. And if you listen and you ask the right questions and you ask them in a way that I'm trying to learn from you too, they're much more open to tell you almost anything. I was much less threatening in that job, right? I was young and female. But asking lots of questions of them and going, help me understand this, and just using different verbiage, the way that you're talking to them really does help people go, well, here, let me help you, right? They're interested in helping you. You just have to approach it the right way.
Yeah.
And
I love
that
what that
practice is helpful.
I love that you call it a practice, because I think some people think one day I'm just going to get it. One day I'm just going to have confidence, or one day I'm just going to have this presence. But I do think you're right. I think it is practice. And I love that tip for practicing on the phone before you have to practice in person, because that's at least you have half of you can still look nervous, but you
Yeah,
can
right.
practice how
They
it
can't
says in
see
your
you.
voice. They
Now,
can't
there
see
is a
you.
little bit more of a problem now, like this generation, like our kids' age and a little bit older, nobody wants to get on the damn phone. They won't talk to anybody. And so they either do like Zoom calls. And I'm like, it's kind of hard to practice like that. You could be shaking and they'll see it. It's a little
Yeah.
harder. But I think it's like having the verbal skills, right? To carry on a conversation with somebody, to dig in and interview and ask for help and all those kinds of things it's kind of a dying skill that I think if somebody can develop now is only going to improve your ability to have that executive presence that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's a differentiator for
Mm-hmm.
sure, right? If you can get it. How do you build, what would be your advice for folks in terms of how do you build credibility when you enter a field where people may or may not immediately know your background? So for instance, one of the things I think is interesting about your life is these pivots that you've had in your career. So when you go into a new version of it and you think, I don't know anything about this field, how does one build their credibility in that world?
For me, I mean, I think it's different for everybody, honestly. I mean, everybody has even when I was, as a corollary to that, when I'd be training associates underneath me when I was a partner, when I was in search, I would have them rotate around to everybody and sit in other associates and other partners' offices and listen to them on the phone and talk to people, because you're going to take a little bit from me and a little bit from John and a little bit from Susan down the hall, and then you're going to make it your own. Right. And then you'll get that confidence. You'll feel comfortable with doing that. For me, my process in making a pivot like this was to listen a lot to everybody around me, but to do a lot of research, right? That's the way I internalize that stuff, is reading about everything I possibly can about the industry, about things that I don't know anything about. And I may not do anything with it, but I can talk about it because I've read a lot and I've talked to people about it. And that, I think, is incredibly helpful when you're talking to people, even though you're like, look, I'm not from the beauty industry. I am a vast consumer of said industry and always have been. But I just do my research and I dig in on a product. And I know that can be daunting for some people, but taking it small chunks at a time, start somewhere, right? Find
Yeah.
somebody, and again, with talking to people and asking them their advice is always helpful. Find a group to join of other people who've been in the industry for a while and just listen.
I love that. Listen, and research from our library
Yeah.
studies major. I
my,
love that.
I do say to my kids, and I've said this to them a million times, is like, God gave you 2 ears and one mouth so you can listen twice as much as you talk. And that will get you somewhere. Like you'll learn
Yeah.
something if you listen twice as much as you talk.
Yeah. I asked this, we started a new program yesterday that we do every year at this one company. And we ask all the time, and probably now over the years of working with lots of, whether it's kids or whether it's adults, you name it, we ask like, what are the best leaders you've ever worked for? And what are the behaviors and traits that they exhibit, right? And then we ask the worst ones too. We don't ask for the names, just the traits and behaviors. And without a doubt, almost always, and it happened again yesterday, that the first trait that someone will raise their hand to say is listening.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's a
you know?
perfect way to get people on board with whatever it is that you are trying to convince them to do. If you listen to them, even if you don't go in the direction that they'd like you to go, if they've expressed their opinion on something, you've listened to them and you've taken that under advisement from them, and maybe you've incorporated a little bit into whatever decision you're going to make, but you still listen to them. And that is, one, a sign of respect. And two, it just brings them into the fold, right? I mean, I think it is a leadership skill that every senior leader should use. It's really
Yeah,
helpful.
and practice over and over because we
Yeah.
kind of go back and forth. I did a listening course with a bunch of CEOs last year, and I was amazed at how bad we all were at it. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Anyway, wanted to ask you too, because I want to make sure we have time for it, is, I happen to know a little bit in your background. You did, growing up, you did a lot of, you did performing arts, right? You did theater, you did
Yeah.
some stuff like that. How
Yeah,
do
I
you
was a
think
singer
that
then too.
you were? Okay,
Yeah.
so you were a triple threat. Did you dance too?
No, I'm not an
Okay.
actor and I'm not a dancer, but I can sing. I mean, I've done some, musical theater kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
never like the lead because I am not an actor, but I'm a singer. So I
So
can easily be that chorus back there. No
how
problem.
do you think that impacted or aided you now in what you do?
It definitely gives you confidence, right? I mean, to be on stage. I think some of it is just, I mean, you know this too, 'cause you're an actress, right? It's this personality trait, right? I mean, some people are just made for it, and some
Yeah.
people clearly are not. And yeah, I think, and then just practicing again, practice, 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 right?
Just
Then you don't get like people are like, do you get nervous when you're on stage? I'm like, not anymore. I used
mhm.
to, but not anymore because now it's not a big deal. So that practicing, even if you're not, everybody's going to have to present at some point in their career, right? Or even if it's just a small group of people and it might make you want to pass out, but practicing it just makes it less daunting.
Yeah. I think that's a great tip for folks. And we often avoid the things that we're not good at. And so we don't
Hmm.
want to practice those things. We'd much rather practice the things that we're good at. And I think it's a
Hmm.
really good kind of almost like what is it, like cognitive behavioral therapy. Like put yourself
Yeah.
in situations where like to your point, where you sign up for a class where at the end you have to sing a song on stage, or where you are going to do stand-up comedy, or where you're going to just have to, do a speech or do a class where you
Yeah.
have to encourage yourself in every meeting to say, I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to find one moment to say something
Hmm.
if you can, because I do agree with Joy that is so important, that part of it. Any other thing that kind of served you think, that you learned early on, like some story of where you either messed up and you thought, oh, this is hard, or where you thought this is an important moment for me, either way.
Gosh, I do remember right not long after I got into search. I guess I had been in for a couple of years and I was still an associate. I think I was senior associate at that point. That, back when we still got faxes and people would send us resumes. They'd send us our resumes, but we all like had different specific industries that we were focused on. And the partner that I worked with, we did chemicals and energy. He came from he worked for OxyChem when he was in the industry. And, stuff would come through on the fax machine. If you saw something that was more fit for you than somebody else, and if it was an unsolicited resume, unless they had like, this is for John Griffin, please give it to, on the cover, and then you take it down to him because he was the energy guy. I took a resume off and it was just an unsolicited one, and somebody like had a hissy fit over it. Like, I'm like, what are you like? You were gonna bring it to me anyway if you got to it first. But I had a big like knock on the head for that for some silly reason, but I did stand up for us for it. I didn't take it to I told my partner that I worked with, I was like, here's what's going on, but I don't need you to get involved. I'll take care of it. And I did. And I kind of had it out with the associate of that team. Like, were you going to use it? No, I wasn't going to use it. I probably would have brought it to you. Well, then why are we fighting about this? This is just ridiculous. And so I think just having enough conviction in what you've done. I mean, don't go stepping out of line doing something like stealing something from somebody. If they had their name on it, then stealing, right? I get it. I just learned, it was so early on in my career there, but I was willing to stand up for what I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't stepping on anybody's toes, and I'm going to not go run down the hall, talk to dad and have him take care of it, that I took care of it myself. And
And it
I think that they appreciated it too. Like they don't want to get involved in that nonsense for, it's silly. Why bother?
So you had to have a difficult conversation, right? You had to
Yeah.
say like, yeah.
Yeah.
How fast did that happen, or did you have to go home? Was there a day in between, or did it happen all pretty much in the same
No,
day?
it was all pretty much. I mean, I had it was a day before they found out that we had the resume, that we ended up with it. It wasn't like a secret. We were talking about it, right? We
Yeah.
talk about those kinds of things at meetings too, like, oh, this resume came through, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But yeah, it was literally like the next day once they figured it out, they like had a fit about it. I didn't think there was anything wrong. I hadn't really thought about it, so it wasn't really a big deal. This is just
So
kind
this
of
is
a
my
daily
question.
MO.
Did you do it again?
Yeah, but never like I took it to him like, by the way,
But here you go.
here it is. Just want to make sure that you didn't want this guy that's 100% chemicals and you work in downstream oil and gas, right? Right. So, but yeah, it was and we had a fine working relationship with those people afterwards. We all worked together fairly well. And I don't know, maybe it was a shitty day for them and they just decided to get something in their bonnet that they wanted to be pissy about. I don't know. But having difficult conversations and standing up for yourself early on, when you can do that and people won't plow over you then, right? And that's what'll happen. They'll keep pushing you if they know that they can, if you're going to kind of wither away and not say anything.
And that is practice too, right? You practice to be able to
Sure.
say that in a way where you're like, am I still not just being completely defensive about feedback, but am I able to go, well, wait a minute here, and ask, were you going to need this person, and have a back and forth that I think is really important for people to have. What I see happen more often than not is that no one has that conversation with the person. They're always,
Yeah.
might be bitching behind each other's back or something, and so I think
Yeah.
what was great about what you did, two things really great is to be able to have the confidence to say, tell your boss, okay, this is going on, just so you know, and I can handle it. I mean, what a message you are sending to your boss in that moment, right? That you've got this. And then to have the guts to be like, no, I'm going to have this conversation. And I think everybody can learn from that. It is that kind of practice that gets you better and better for those
Yeah, sure.
things.
It doesn't have to be contentious and holding a grudge. And I mean, I'm pretty good at like just moving on, right? Just that's not that big of a deal. There are other things that I could be upset about, and this is not one I need to choose to be upset about.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, learning how to have difficult conversations, I think the big takeaway early on in your career, it will only help you in the long run.
Yeah. Well, Joy, thank you so much for coming on. And all of you out there, check out her website. She has some really wonderful products, especially for anyone going through, what did you call it? Hormonal change.
Hormonally challenged skin, right? If your skin is changing a bunch, and it's hormonally based, yeah, this can be helpful for you.
That's a great idea. So that's for a lot of us out there. So give it a go. And Joy, thank you so much for joining us. And I look
Thank
forward to
you.
seeing more about what you do.
Thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for spending time here on Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'd like to give a special shout out to our podcast producer, Richard Francisco. Check out our notes for any details. And if you want to get anything more out of this, go to our YouTube channel and please subscribe to Leadership Lab TV. If you heard something today, of course, that resonated with you, do something with it. It's all about the choices that you make. It's what you say in conversations, how you show up in a moment. Share this episode with someone who's maybe starting a new job or stepping into a new level of leadership, and try one idea, because it just might create some pretty powerful leadership ripple effects. Until next time, keep stepping in, because the room changes when you do.